let's jump into the Alabama stuff while I'm on a roll and feeling super negative about teams. Uh, I, I'm in tear in my beer mode. So I'm talking to the people with tears in their beers, and there is there's beer cans full of tears in Alabama this weekend, Mason, because those poor people out in Alabama, they don't have anything else. Okay, have pity on them. They don't have anything else. Some of them are Braves fans. That's been painful this year. And let me just, I mean, in all honesty, if you really think back to it, Mason, this Alabama team hasn't played well since the first half of the Georgia game last year. I mean, they really haven't. If you go back and they got way up on Georgia, 31-7 or something in the first half, and then somehow allowed Georgia, that offense that Georgia had last year, mind you, come all the way back in that game, take the lead, in which Alabama did end up winning the game there at home. But ever since that second half of that game, they have not played well, man. And this was another one of those weekends where they didn't play well. They went on the road. They specifically haven't played well on the road through that stretch. And this was one of those times, man. Florida State absolutely just reared back and punched them right between the eyes. And Alabama didn't have no freaking answer. And it was that type of beating, too. It was one right here. And Alabama couldn't do a damn thing about it. They couldn't do a dang thing about it. They beat them at the point of attack, out-physicaled them, and Alabama, their defense flat out just couldn't tackle anybody. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen anything quite that bad from the Alabama defense in a while. So I'm really, for Alabama fans' sake and really for Kalen DeBoer's sake, pretty worried about the state of the program over there, to be honest with you. Ty Simpson, 23 of 43 in this game, 254 yards. And the final, obviously, on that one was 31-17, by the way. Florida State wins. You all know that by now. But Ty Simpson, 23 of 43, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you talk about those numbers, I mean, that's not super efficient, 23 of 43 in itself. But 254 and 2 touchdowns doesn't sound too bad. But going back and watching this, because I fell asleep for about an hour of this game, or on and off. I was nodding in and out. I had been drinking beer all day and eating barbecue. But going back and watching it, Ty Simpson, man, he's another one of these guys that's been in the program for a little while, and it's like he still ain't ready. He's certainly not a championship caliber quarterback. Not right now. And can that change 8 to 10 games into the season? Yeah, he can evolve. Any of these guys can evolve, of course. Anybody can get better over the course of the season. But there's a lot to be done here, man. I mean, lots of double clutching going on with the football. Very, very hesitant. Very clear that this offense isn't ironed out right now. You do obviously have some, highlights or high water marks of the offense with Bernard. He had a good day, but Ryan Williams looks a little bit lost right now. Even I just pretty disappointed in what I saw from Alabama, a team that a bunch of people picked to win the SEC and the national championship. I'm not saying that there's no chance any of that can happen at this point, but I think that it's a fat chance in hell at this point.
I mean, yeah, I don't see it happening.
What's your thoughts on this one?
I think, a lot of people are going to look at Alabama, and I'll start there, but I do want to talk about the winner of this too.
I'm being negative, man. I don't know why I'm being so negative today, but I am.
We'll circle
you take
back
the winners, I'll take the losers. How about that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll be whole optimistic Nancy over here. But no, we'll start with Alabama, because this is what everybody's going to look at. Everybody's going to see the stat line, if they didn't watch the game, and it's going to look like Alabama just got absolutely dominated in this game. If you see, if you look at the stats, and that's because they did get absolutely dominated, and that is not characteristic of an Alabama team in general. when you look at Alabama, they still have one of the most talented rosters in all of college football, and it's not really that close. They're up there in tier one from a talent perspective. What we saw on Saturday out of Alabama that we haven't seen from them in 15 plus years is a lack of character and a lack of discipline and a lack of hustle. There was no fire, passion, and energy or any of that going on over there in Tuscaloosa or in Tallahassee for the game for this one. And they got beat up front. I think that was what was most surprising, was not just the fact that Florida State beat them up front, but how badly they dominated them. Alabama's leading rusher had 31 yards. I mean, they ended up with 87 yards rushing. That is an absolute bludgeoning. 254 yards passing, not too bad. Yards per pass, 5.9. That could be a lot better. I thought that and you mentioned Jeremy Bernard having a good game. He certainly did, 146 yards. But also that's a little bit of a concern to me when you compare his stats to Ryan Williams, who is supposed to be the guy. Where was he? Because I saw a receiver who looked exactly like he did at the back half of last season, which we saw him really just kind of fall off. I didn't see any progression since then. I didn't see the Ryan Williams that I saw in weeks 1 through 4 last season. He's completely cooled off, and I'm not so sure he's the best wide receiver in the SEC like we had kind of written him off to be going into the season. Everybody said it was Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. I'm not seeing that. Things really have to take a turn. They were lining him up in the slot, which was a little bit weird. I understand he may be a slot receiver at the next level, but here in college football, he's still one of the best receivers on that roster. I don't know if lining him up in the slot is necessarily the best move, because he does not look like a confident receiver catching the ball over the middle. He looked very hesitant, and that's not exactly what you want out of that slot position. Very disappointing from the Crimson Tide. I think if you were on the fence about whether or not the dynasty was over, I think you're finally over that fence now. I do think that Alabama is a team that is going to be looking for a new coach here before too long, if they're willing to pay the $70 million buyout to get DeBoer out of there. I really do think it's that bad. I think we're sounding the alarms on the Crimson Tide right now. They didn't look physically like they were in any type of good shape. Caden Proctor still rolling out there at 370 pounds, thinking he's going to get it done at offensive tackle. You can't do that. They don't do it in the NFL, right? The tackles aren't that big in the NFL. They're slimmed down a little bit. You're not special. You're going to have to lose some weight. Just overall, they didn't look as physically demanding as they have in years past. Moving on to Florida State, Mike Norvell gets it done, gets a signature win, a marquee win, a much-needed win after only finding 2 of them last year. I think you really have to step back. As negative as we just talked about Alabama, they are still a team with a top 5 roster in college football. They still have the dudes on that side of the football to make a splash, especially when they're all playing together. They weren't this weekend, that's for sure. But Florida State last year, they would have got beat by that Alabama team by 20 points easily. So this was a huge improvement for Florida State. And Florida State fans should feel very comfortable heading into this season, because I saw playmakers out there, right? I saw a defensive line that was hungry. I saw a running attack that I haven't seen since the 2023 season out of Florida State. Really like what I saw out of the freshman Kruma, however you pronounce his last name. Castellanos and Gus Malzahn seem to be a match made in heaven. I mean, this is a perfect scenario for Florida State, and I think that they're really catching the ACC, which now looks like a more dominant league than we had going into the season. But I think that they're catching the ACC at the right time, and with just the right amount of transfers to really flip the script from last year and make a run for an ACC championship in this season. I don't I don't think we're speaking too hyperbolically of either team here in Alabama and Florida State. This game was won by more than 14 points, right? I saw a Florida State team that just went out there and executed, dominated, played with a certain amount of character and responsibility that I didn't see out of Alabama. And I think that this is going to carry them throughout the ACC, and we've got to have them as contenders for at least the ACC, if not the national championship, moving forward. What's your take on Florida State, though? I mean, I know you kind of gave your spill on Alabama, but let's give our flowers to Florida State here for a minute.
Well, first of all, it's got to start with Tommy Castellanos. Everybody owes him an apology after, he kind of ran his mouth this summer, or what we all consider to be running his mouth this past summer. And, I think it's because of history that everybody just kind of marked it off, said, oh, well, shouldn't have done that. You just woke up a sleeping bear, because we all remember like you remember the dude from Vandy, we want Bama, and then the next week Bama comes in and wins 70-11 to nothing. Tommy Castellanos talked the talk, and then he went out there and he walked the walk. Okay. Him and Gus Malzahn, you nailed it. And it is, I'm glad that we touched on that actually in our preview. We touched on the fact that Gus Malzahn has got a history of giving Alabama problems. And apparently it doesn't matter who the coach is, because not many people had more success against Alabama than he did.
Did you see his tweet after the game where he said it feels like old? He said it feels like old times. Go Noles.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna I'll warn all you Noles fans right now. Okay. He's got a really awesome system for a running quarterback and for the rushing attack. 230 yards rushing in this game was the padlock stat. Okay. And when it was time to close the game out, Florida State was able to do that by running the football and getting first downs. There will come about 2 or 3 games this year where a defense will have that offense pegged. It will happen. I'm telling you right now. It happened to him at UCF, happened to him in Auburn. There is certain defensive minds out there that have an answer to these questions. Kirby Smart was one of them typically, minus like one time. So it's great. I think it's a really good fit. It's exactly what Florida State needed right now. They're not playing in the SEC. They don't play SEC teams all year. They play ACC teams all year. And Florida State is going to be in good shape, I think. I think they're in really, really good shape.
Just looking ahead real quick to their schedule, they're going to finish up. They've got Miami, Clemson, and Florida on their schedule. Outside of that, they ought to win every game. Pitt could come up and sneak up on you. Maybe a Virginia Tech, an NC State potentially. But I feel pretty good about this team at least winning 9 games with the way that they played. But when you talk about matching up with you physically and being able to stop the run, defensive line like Miami could probably do that. Defensive line like Clemson could probably do that. We'll have to wait and see with Florida. But there is some potential out there, some physical teams left on their schedule. This was a huge first win, though, for them to be able to get to that 9-win mark, and probably going to need 10 wins at least to, if you don't win that ACC, to make it to the college football playoffs, which, of course, is their hopes for this season.
Well, from what I saw from Clemson and what I saw from Florida State, I think Florida State can compete with Clemson. I certainly think that they can, and I think they can compete with Florida. So are they going to win all 3 of those tough games? Probably not. Probably going to lose one of them. But as far as so far this season, 1 game in, and knowing what we know, which is limited knowledge, we all have the same sample size here. Tommy Castellanos is on my list of dudes of the week. It's John Mateer, it's Caleb Downs, it's Jalen Daniels from Kansas, and it's Tommy Castellanos is on that list. Among some others. There's some others that I've got on that list as well as people that I've been real impressed with. But Castellanos is one of those, and he's going to be a real good fit here. Squirrel White, hit a nice explosive play in this one. The running game was just on point. I mean, 230 yards rushing is absolutely huge. Mekhi Danzy looks like kind of that home run hitter in the run game. And you're gonna that's how you're gonna butter your bread with this offense, with this offensive coordinator. So congratulations, Florida State, 31-17 home winners over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Really good stuff there, and about as impressive as Florida State has looked since that 2023 season, before they were absolutely bludgeoned by Georgia in that bowl season. That was the best I've seen them look in a long time. So pretty impressed and ready to watch some more Florida State football. I'm ready to get another game under my belt that I can look at and kind of compare and see if this is something. Did they catch lightning in a bottle this past weekend? Because that does happen in college football at times. We're all just going to have to kind of wait and see on that. But so far, so good for the Florida State Seminoles.